The day I transmigrated into the consort, the original owner had died from exhaustion. Literally, died from exhaustion. It was said that this ill-fated virtuous consort, in order to prepare the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, had stayed up for 7 consecutive nights. In the end, she suffered a heart attack. And just like that, snap, she was gone. It's a bargain for a corporate drone like me, who just had a heart attack from the client's relentless calls. After absorbing the original host's memories, I only have one feeling: suffocation, truly suffocating. This is no princess consort. This is clearly the house's 365-day non-stop gold medal all-round housekeeper, royal image spokesperson, and the KPI champion of the capital's top socialite circle. She rises at the crow of the rooster, personally overseeing the small kitchen's preparation of the prince's breakfast, even though the prince doesn't eat at the residence 9.5 days out of 10. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. Managing countless affairs, she oversees every detail of the house's hundreds of residents, from food and daily necessities to social engagements, monthly allowance distribution, and business management. Rain or shine, she never fails to enter the palace daily to pay respects to the Empress Dowager and Empress, more punctual than a time clock, regularly hosting flower viewing banquets, tea-tasting gatherings, and poetry sessions to maintain the relationship network of the entire capital's top noble women's circle. She was also responsible for managing the prince's private treasury, organizing the study, and occasionally even helping the meddlesome imperial consort in the emperor's harem solve her troubles. The original host, Shanzai, worked herself to death. What was he after? Just to have model worker carved on her memorial tablet after death. I lay on a spacious bed large enough to race horses, with brocade quilts piled beneath me like clouds, the air filled with the expensive scent of sinking incense. Comfortable, truly comfortable, with such luxurious conditions. Wouldn't it be wonderful to just lie flat and be a couch potato? Young mistress, you're awake, it's time to get up. Today you must enter the palace to express your gratitude to Her Majesty the Empress. The voice of the head maid, Jinshu, carried a barely noticeable tension as it sounded from outside the bed curtains. Express gratitude. Gratitude for what? Gratitude for crossing over into this world. I turned over, burying my face into the soft pillow that carried the scent of sunlight, and mumbled in a muffled voice, I'm not going. Just tell them I'm too overwhelmed with grief to get up. Jinshu was clearly taken aback. Madam, this is against protocol. Yesterday was your first day after the investiture ceremony. Protocol. I abruptly threw aside the bed curtains, sitting up with disheveled hair. The original owner. I died from exhaustion precisely because I followed protocol too strictly. From today onward, my protocol is no protocol. Lie flat, understand? Lie flat. Jinshu and Huaping, the maid holding the bronze basin nearby, both turned pale, looking at me as if they'd seen a ghost. I couldn't be bothered to explain. My gaze swept across the room and landed precisely on the massive rosewood bookshelf beside the dressing table. Covered densely above were all the original owner's medals of honor, refined management of the prince's household, a complete guide to etiquette for noble women of Great Chu, a guide to organizing royal banquets, genealogical records of noble families in the capital. In the most prominent spot lay a thick, well-worn booklet, its cover nearly falling apart from use. I walked over and pulled it out, the code of conduct for a virtuous and principled princess consort. Opening the first page, I was met with the original owner's elegant and neat handwriting. Rise at the beginning of the marrow hour, wash the face and apply makeup, dress in formal attire. Every detail was meticulously recorded, specifying what to do down to every quarter of an hour. Looking at this death warrant of a schedule, the lingering resentment and unwillingness left by the original owner, combined with my own deep-seated aversion to endless striving from my past life, exploded within me in an instant. Bring the brazier. Jinshu and Huaping were so frightened they dropped to their knees with a thud. Please calm your anger, princess consort. Calm what anger? I'm delighted. I pointed at the bookshelf. Take all of these except for the storybooks and cookbooks and move them out. Burn them. Especially this one. I waved the book The Rules of a Virtuous Princess Consort in my hand. laughing with immense satisfaction. From today onward, my life motto is just one: do whatever feels comfortable. No one can make me strive for perfection anymore, as the rulebook, which embodied the original owner's lifelong efforts and symbolized the ultimate KPI for a top-tier princess consort, turned to ashes in the brazier. A wisp of smoke curling upward, I let out a long, long sigh of relief, the taste of freedom. The spring of the slacker has arrived. My slacker life began in hell mode. On the very first day of lying flat, trouble came knocking. Prince Chu Mingyuan has returned. This man, my husband in name, is the Jingwang of the Great Chu dynasty, said to be the emperor's most trusted younger brother. He holds real power, occupies a high position, and his appearance, well, quite fits the configuration of a romance novel male lead, with sharp eyebrows and starry eyes, a tall and straight nose bridge, and thin lips pressed tightly together. He wore a dark prince's casual robe that accentuated his broad shoulders and long legs, exuding an imposing aura. It's just that his gaze is too cold, looking at people as if they were objects. He stood at the door of my completely revamped salty fish happy room, his brows furrowed so deeply they could crush a fly. The room had completely changed its appearance. The original solemn and heavy rosewood furniture had been mostly moved out. In their place was a chaise lounge piled high with thick, soft cushions, and a low table laden with preserved fruits, melon seeds, peanuts, and the latest collected storybooks. 2/3 of the bookshelf was now empty, leaving only a few travelogues and several books with covers that looked utterly trashy at a glance. Titles like ***, The Dashing Handsome Scholar**, and ***, The Cold-Faced Prince Falls for Me**. A thick plush carpet covered the floor, feeling soft and fluffy under bare feet. The air was filled with the scent of fruit, rather than the heavy aroma of agarwood. The entire room exuded a lazy vibe, as if its owner had completely given up on any pretense of order. Chu Mingyuan's gaze swept over everything, finally settling on me. I was sprawled inelegantly on the chaise lounge, munching on an apple with one hand while flipping through The Cold-Faced Prince Falls for Me with the other. My feet swaying idly. Shenzai, his voice was deep, betraying no emotion. What are you doing? I swallowed the apple in my mouth and tried to muster a sincere, and utterly lazy, smile, replying to Your Highness, I'm recuperating. The imperial physician said I have a heart condition and need to rest quietly. I mustn't strain my mind or get agitated. I pointed to my chest, putting on a frail expression. It hurts whenever I move. Chu Mingyuan's gaze lingered on my flushed cheeks and the half-eaten apple for a moment, his eyes clearly conveying, do I look like a fool to you? But he didn't expose me. This prince was a man of profound cunning. In that case, rest well, he said indifferently. The management of the household affairs will temporarily be handled by Consort Liu. You'd better behave yourself. After saying that, he turned and left, clean and straightforward. Without any hesitation, I breathed a sigh of relief. Fine. That's good, as long as they don't bother me. I don't care who's in charge. However, I underestimated the level of competition in the prince's rear courtyard. No sooner had the prince left than Consort Liu, along with her fake friends, Consort Li and concubine Zhong, marched in a grand procession straight into my lazy fish happy room. Consort Liu, Liu Ruyan, true to her name, is as delicate as a willow swaying in the wind, with a captivating charm that evokes pity in her every glance. It is said she is accomplished in the 4 arts of the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, making her a formidable rival to the original host on the virtue and talent track. Consort Li, Li Yuerong, the daughter of a military general, has a sharp and straightforward personality, with a loud and clear voice. Concubine Zhong, Zhong Wanqing, a delicate beauty from a humble family, appears gentle and obedient, yet her eyes are the most lively and shrewd. As soon as the 3 of them entered, they were taken aback by the decadent atmosphere of my room. Sister, Liu Ruyan pinched her handkerchief, her voice soft enough to drip water. We heard you weren't feeling well, so we sisters came specially to visit. Your room is quite unique. She glanced at the carpet on the floor and my bare feet. Unable to hide the disdain in her eyes, Li Yuerong spoke loudly. Sister consort, your illness has come at such an inconvenient time. The Empress Dowager's birthday banquet just ended, and we must soon prepare for the autumn hunt to accompany His Majesty. In previous years, You handled everything so methodically. Now that you've dropped everything, the household is in complete chaos. Sister Liu has just taken over, with countless matters to attend to. How can she manage? Zhong Wanqing chimed in softly from the side. Indeed, consort, even His Highness is worried. Even if you're unwell, you should still guide Sister Liu, after all. Such a large princely estate cannot function without proper order. The three of them took turns, each adding their piece. The central idea is just one: stop lying down and get up and hustle. If you don't shoulder this KPI, who will? We're just here to watch the show and maybe give you a little kick while we're at it. If it were the original owner, they'd probably be forcing their sick body to sit up by now and start directing the troops. But who am I? I am Niohuru times salty fish times Zai. I slowly finished the last bite of the apple and accurately tossed the core into the wastebasket in the corner. Then, under the expectant gazes of the three of them, I gradually, very gradually, covered my chest. Oh, the sound wasn't loud, but it was clear enough. I furrowed my brow, my face instantly turning pale, from holding my breath, and my body went limp as I slumped onto the chaise lounge, my voice faint and weak. It hurts. My chest. It hurts so much. I can't breathe. Jinshu, Hua Ping, medicine, quickly. I was acting so intensely that my eyes were starting to roll back. The fake smiles on Liu Ruyan and the other two instantly froze, turning into shock and panic. Sister consort, what's wrong with you? Quick, summon the imperial physician at once. The room instantly fell into chaos. Jinshu and Hua Ping reacted with lightning speed. One rushed over to anxiously support me, crying out in a tearful voice, "Your Highness, hold on." While the other had already dashed out to call for help. With my eyes closed, I listened to their flustered commotion and inwardly burst with joy. Feigning illness is truly the ultimate weapon for slackers fighting against the rat race. By the time Chu Mingyuan was alerted and stepped back into my room with a grim expression, this was the scene that greeted him. I lay weakly on the couch, covered with a brocade quilt, a damp towel placed on my forehead, placed by Jinshu. Liu Ruyan and the other two stood helplessly to the side, their faces growing increasingly unpleasant. What happened? Chu Mingyuan's voice was cold and sharp. Liu Ruyan hurriedly explained, "Your Highness, we only came to visit the princess consort." But suddenly I slowly came to at just the right moment. My gaze dazed as I looked at Chu Mingyuan, my voice as faint as a mosquito's hum. "Your Highness, don't blame the sisters, it's this humble one. This body of mine is just too weak." Hearing the sisters speak of the complicated affairs in the manor, I grew anxious, and then, as I spoke, I painfully furrowed my brows again, clutching my chest. Chu Mingyuan's gaze swept back and forth between me and Liu Ruyan and the other two. The petty schemes of Liu Ruyan and the others were probably as transparent as glass in the eyes of someone as shrewd as him. Sure enough, his expression darkened even further as he scolded Liu Ruyan and the others. "The princess consort needs rest. Who gave you permission to come here and disturb her? Since the affairs of the manor have been entrusted to you, handle them yourself. If you can't even manage such trivial matters, what use are you? All of you, get out." Liu Ruyan's face flushed red and then turned pale, her eyes welling up with tears of grievance. Yet she dared not utter a single word in retort. She could only lead Li Yuerong and Zhong Wanqing away in disgrace. The world fell quiet. Chu Mingyuan walked to the bedside and looked down at me from above. His gaze was so sharp it seemed capable of piercing through my ailing body. I quickly closed my eyes and continued pretending to be dead. A voice came from above, its tone unreadable. "Shanzai, you'd better really be sick." My heart skipped a beat. "Bro, see through it but don't call it out." He stood there for a moment, said nothing more, then turned and left, listening to the footsteps fading away. I abruptly opened my eyes and let out a long, heavy sigh. That was close. Jinshu leaned in, her small face still showing lingering fear. "My lady, you scared me to death just now." I patted my chest, still feeling the lingering fear. I was scared to death too. "Okay, next time I pretend to faint. We need to arrange a secret signal in advance." Hua Ping couldn't help but laugh, then quickly covered her mouth. I sat up, pulled the towel off my forehead, and said with great energy, "Quick, bolt the door for me. Don't let anyone in even if the sky falls. I need to catch up on sleep." The first rule of survival for a salted fish: if you can lie down, never sit up; if you can play dead, never breathe. The overachievers in the prince's mansion were temporarily driven back by my masterful act of feigning illness, but the joy of being a salted fish goes far beyond that. I discovered a massive treasure left behind by the original owner: money. A lot of money. The Jing prince's mansion was extremely wealthy. As the mistress of the household, the original owner had an astonishingly rich private treasury, consisting of her dowry, the prince's rewards over the years, and gifts from the palace. Previously, this money was used by the original owner to build connections, purchase properties, and maintain the lavish expenses befitting a top-tier princess consort. Now, they have all become the source of my carefree happiness. I had Jinshu and Huaping bring me the account books from my private treasury. Wow! Silks and satins, piled up like a small mountain, gold, silver, and jewels, dazzling to the eyes, precious medicinal herbs, filling the storerooms to the brim. Not to mention 2 shops in the most bustling district of the capital, and a villa with hot springs in the outskirts of the city. As I looked over the account books, my eyes were gleaming with excitement. Jinshu, Huaping, I waved my hand grandly. This princess consort is going to improve our lives. First step: eat. The original owner, in order to maintain so-called elegance and restraint, ate as plainly as a nun in a temple. She called it nourishing life. Nourish my foot. She nourished herself straight into the grave. I directly called the steward of the small kitchen and tossed him a copy of A House of a Bite of China that I had written and drawn, based on my memories from my previous life. See this: boiled fish slices, maok suwang, spicy fragrant pot, braised pork belly, charcoal grilled lamb chops, guabao roux. Buddha jumps over the wall. Oh, this one might be a bit difficult, but jot it down for now. The steward held that scribbled mess, his hands trembling. Madam, this isn't appropriate. Appropriate what? Your madam is currently ill and needs to replenish her nutrients, needs delicious food to comfort her soul. Understand? Make it. If you can't make it, you can go raise pigs on the estate. I put on the demeanor of a harsh mistress. The steward looked at the bright red chili symbols all over the recipe, his face turning green, but under my benevolent gaze, he could only agree with tears in his eyes. Yes. Yes, this servant will go and figure it out. Step 2, stay. My happy lazy room has the hardware, but the software still needs an upgrade. Jinshu, go to the storeroom, find that softest, smoothest moonlit gauze and replace the window screens. I want the kind that makes even the breeze feel ethereal when it drifts in. Huaping, take away that agarwood incense burner. It's making me dizzy. Replace it with, orange peels, pomelo peels, even roasted sweet potatoes. I want the scent of everyday life, understand? And this bedding, add 3 more layers. I want to feel like I'm sinking into a cloud when I lie down. Step 3, entertainment. Go and gather for me the freshest storybooks in the entire capital. I want all genres. The overbearing prince falls for me. The witty maids rise to power. The down-on-her-luck noble lady finds true love. The more melodramatic, the better. Go find a few more young maids and servants who can tell jokes, perform storytelling, and do juggling tricks. This princess consort is going to establish the salted fish happy workshop. Jinshu and Huaping went from initial shock and fear to gradually becoming numb, and in the end, they were completely led astray by me. When carrying out orders, their faces were flushed with an excited glow that seemed to say, following the princess consort's lead actually feels pretty great. In just a few short days, my courtyard had completely become the alternate dimension of the prince's mansion. The air was filled with the mixed aroma of spicy, numbing, fresh flavors and the scent of roasted sweet potatoes. Gauzy moonlight curtains now adorned the windows. The room was filled with all kinds of snacks and sensational romance novels. I also had a swing set up for me under the large locust tree in the courtyard, complete with soft cushions, in the warm afternoon sunlight. I nestled in the swing with a bag of salted peanuts, swaying gently as I listened to the little maid haltingly reading the overbearing prince's substitute runaway bride, laughing so hard I nearly toppled over. Ha ha ha, is this prince an idiot, still pining after his first love even though she's already married? If it were me, I'd have found 18 male consorts to have fun with long ago. The little maid was so frightened she nearly threw the book away. "My lady, please watch your words." I grabbed a handful of peanuts and stuffed them into her hand. "What are you afraid of? There's no one else here. Keep reading. Call me when you get to the part where the domineering prince chases his wife into the crematorium. The joy of being a salted fish is simple, unadorned, and dull." But this joy was soon met with a severe challenge from the core fortress of feudalism. The head matron from the Empress Dowager's side arrived. This matron, surnamed Yang, wore a face as stiff as a coffin board. Looking as if everyone owed her a fortune, she was one of the Empress Dowager's most trusted relics. By the Empress Dowager's verbal decree, she had come to visit me in my illness, while also conveying Her Majesty's profound concern and earnest expectations for me. The concern was false, but the expectations were real. "I hope I don't really give up and just lie flat, but get up quickly and keep grinding." As soon as Stewardess Yang entered my courtyard, her eyebrows, so sharp they could kill flies, twisted into knots. The spicy aroma in the air made her sneeze 3 times in a row. When she saw the ethereal moonlight gauze on my window, which in her eyes was probably indecent, the corner of her mouth twitched. Seeing me again, wearing loose and comfortable cotton home clothes, with no royal dignity as a princess, with disheveled hair, utterly improper, barefoot, shameless, lounging in the swing, with peanut shells and storybooks scattered nearby, Nanny Yang's face turned completely dark. "This old servant pays respects to the princess." Her voice was as dry as sandpaper grinding against wood, each syllable dripping with strong disapproval. "Her Majesty the Empress Dowager is unwell and concerned about the princess, so she specially sent this old servant to inquire after your well-being. Her Majesty said that the princess has always been virtuous and well-mannered. For your heart condition, you need to rest and recuperate calmly, and must avoid indulging in frivolous pastimes that damage the royal family's dignity." Her cloudy yet sharp eyes swept meaningfully over my bare feet and the storybooks beside me. "Is it a waste of time and a loss of dignity?" I rolled my eyes internally, but on the surface, I immediately put on an expression of fear and overwhelming gratitude. Struggling to get off the swing, moving as slowly as a sloth, "Your Majesty is too kind. I am overwhelmed." Then, I feebly clutched my chest and timely coughed twice. Jinshu and Huaping quickly supported me on either side, putting on quite the performance. A corner of Mother Yang's mouth twitched again, clearly not buying this excuse. Her Majesty the Empress Dowager also mentioned that the Buddha's birthday is approaching. In previous years, the princess consort would piously copy scriptures and burn incense in the mansion's prayer hall for 7 days, praying for the royal family. This year, I wonder if the princess consort's health can still endure it. It's here. The KPI assessment is here. Every year for the Buddha's birthday, the original hostess had to kneel for 7 days in the cold, vast, and hard prayer hall of the princely mansion, copying a thick stack of scriptures until her wrists swelled and her knees bruised. She also had to bathe, fast, and eat a diet even more vegetarian than a rabbit's. It was glorified as sincerity leads to efficacy, accumulating merit by praying for the royal family. Isn't this just disguised corporal punishment? My mind raced. Refuse outright. No. With the Empress Dowager's authority looming so large, even Chu Mingyuan might not be able to withstand the pressure. Feign illness. Last time I pretended to have a heart condition. This time I can't exactly fake a broken leg, can I? And with Matron Yang's current demeanor, it's clear she's here on imperial orders to supervise. Tough it out. Impossible. Even the bones of a salted fish are soft. Got it. I weakly lifted my head, my eyes firmly fixed on Nanny Yang. Her Majesty the Empress Dowager's grace, I am deeply grateful in my heart. Praying for the royal family is my duty. Even if my health is unwell, I will certainly do my best to fulfill it. A hint of satisfaction that said "you know your place" finally appeared on Nanny Yang's face. But I changed the subject, furrowing my brows with a worried expression. "Nanny, you've seen it yourself, my health is truly useless. In a cold and austere place like the Buddha Hall, if I can't hold on and faint, it would instead appear insincere. Disturbing the Buddha in such a way, wouldn't that be the greatest disrespect?" Nanny Yang was taken aback, clearly not expecting this angle from me. "Then what does the princess consort mean?" I struggled to stand a bit straighter. wearing an expression of enduring humiliation for the greater good and determination. I was thinking that blessings come from the heart, not bound by form. The Buddha is compassionate, seeing me so sincere and so frail. Surely he would not be harsh. Why not move the prayer ceremony to my courtyard? For one, the familiar environment would help me recuperate, so I wouldn't collapse midway. For another, it would also show my closeness to the Buddha, free from distractions. I blinked my sincere big eyes at Nanny Yang. Move the Buddha hall to my courtyard? This is simply unheard of. Nanny Yang's coffin-like face cracked, clearly shaken by my earth-shattering idea. Her lips trembled as she tried to refute me, but couldn't find the right words for a moment. I quickly seized the opportunity to press my advantage, pulling out my ultimate weapon. Of course, this humble one will spare no effort. Fasting, ritual cleansing, burning incense, offering prayers, not a single step will be missed, and I will prepare a special, most heartfelt offering for the Buddha. I will surely make Her Majesty the Empress Dowager aware of my sincere devotion. A special offering, heartfelt. Mammy Yang looked at me with suspicion, but the words Her Majesty the Empress Dowager and sincere devotion clearly struck a chord with her. After a moment of hesitation, she finally nodded. In that case, I hope Your Highness will take good care of yourself. This old servant will report truthfully to Her Majesty the Empress Dowager. After seeing off Mammy Yang, who kept glancing back with every step, her face clearly saying I feel something isn't quite right, I immediately revived on the spot. Jinshu, Hua Ping, get moving, to the storeroom, bring out that largest gilded bronze incense burner for me, and that white jade guanyin statue, yes. The one that looks the most expensive and impressive. Then go to the small kitchen, tell the steward that this princess consort is observing a vegetarian fast, make it grand, make it elaborate, and also, summon the most skilled carpenter in the mansion. I need to build a shed in the courtyard, quickly. The entire courtyard instantly shifted into a state of wartime readiness. 7 days later, the Buddha's birthday, my slacker-style Buddhist shrine officially opened for business. Location: under the largest, most luxuriant locust tree in my courtyard. Key setup: one chaise lounge with a thick brocade cushion, for easy reclining at any time. One spacious rosewood table, piled high with, well, more on that later. Before the table, the priceless white jade guanyin statue was enshrined, with a large gilded bronze incense burner placed in front, from which wafted, well, not sandalwood, but a certain mixed fruitwood fragrance. Around it, light gauze and fresh flowers were simply arranged, creating a hazy, somewhat UN temple-like Zen atmosphere. The most ingenious touch was on the locust tree, where I had a carpenter build an exquisite canopy with fine bamboo curtains hanging down, providing shelter from wind and sun while maintaining elegance. Sure enough, Mother Yang came again, representing the Empress Dowager to grace us with her guidance. When she entered the courtyard and saw my prayer room open air, with a canopy, and even a chaise lounge, her face turned as colorful as an overturned palette. Your Highness, this is utterly improper. Her voice grew shrill. I was dressed in simple, but exquisitely soft and high-quality, robes, devoutly kneeling on a cushion in front of the chaise lounge. The cushion was stuffed with cotton, incredibly soft. Hearing her words, I weakly lifted my head, my eyes clear and innocent. Please calm your anger, matron. Look, the locust tree reaches for the heavens. Its shade like a canopy, all the more showing the Buddha's protection and closeness to nature. I chant scriptures here, bathed in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, feeling the grace of the Buddha. My heart is especially at peace. I pointed to the awning overhead. I have a weak constitution. If I were to be exposed to the scorching sun, I fear I wouldn't be able to last 7 days, which would only disappoint Her Majesty the Empress Dowager and the Buddha. The Buddha is compassionate and will surely understand the difficulties of a devoted follower. Nanny Yang was left speechless by my combination of embracing nature and the Buddha's compassionate understanding. Her chest heaved violently with suppressed anger. Then, what exactly is that on the altar? She asked, pointing a trembling finger at the several large, lidded purple clay pots on the rosewood table, from which an intense and overpowering aroma continuously wafted. I smiled faintly and signaled Hua Ping to lift the lids. The lid was lifted. First pot, Vegetarian 18 Treasures Luohan Jai, made with 18 varieties of mountain delicacies such as premium shiitake mushrooms, winter bamboo shoots, hair moss, dried tofu sticks, daylily flowers, and wood ear fungus. Simmered slowly over low heat with a secret vegetarian broth, the soup is rich, the color enticing, and the aroma captivating. Second pot, golden broth jade tofu soup, tender tofu cut into fine shreds, floating in a rich golden pumpkin broth, garnished with vibrant green pea sprouts, a feast for the eyes. Third pot, fragrant pan-fried 100-flavored vegetarian goose breast, made by wrapping a secret mushroom filling layer by layer in tofu skin. Pan-fried until crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, with an alluring aroma. The fourth course, 5-colored auspicious vegetarian delight, 5 colors of seasonal fresh vegetables, stir-fried to a crisp and tender perfection, vibrant and colorful. Beside it were a row of small dishes, bamboo shoot tips dressed in sesame oil, lotus root with osmanthus sugar, pine nut corn, and vegetarian crab roe pastry, steaming hot. The aroma was so overpowering it instantly overwhelmed the fruity wood scent from the incense burner, rushing straight into Mother Yang's head. Mother Yang's eyes nearly popped out of her head, pointing at the table full of vegetarian dishes. Her voice cracked. "Why, Your Highness, this is vegetarian food. It's as lavish as a palace feast, for heaven's sake." With an expression of utmost innocence and piety, I said, "Reverend Mother, please see clearly, this is indeed vegetarian food. Not a trace of meat," I thought. Since the Buddha saves all beings and has compassion for the world, we devotees should offer not only with sincere hearts but also with exquisite care to show our respect. Wouldn't plain tea and simple rice be a sign of neglect? I picked up a beautifully bound booklet next to me, with the cover inscribed Heart Sutra for Buddha's birthday, and opened it. Inside were indeed neatly transcribed scriptures, but in the margins of every page, written in extremely elegant, penned by Jin Shu, small characters, were densely packed notes on the ingredients, methods, and cooking tips for various vegetarian dishes. You see, I pointed to those small characters. While copying the scriptures, I felt something in my heart and realized this principle of Zen in every bite. Only by devoting both body and mind to preparing the purest and most heartfelt offerings for the Buddha can the scripture copying become more meaningful, and the prayers appear more sincere. I handed the booklet to Mother Yang, my eyes so sincere they could melt an iceberg. "This is what I've gained over 7 days, each word written with my heart's blood. I humbly ask you to present it to Her Majesty the Empress Dowager on my behalf, as a small token of my humble devotion." Mother Yang's hands trembled as she received that hybrid of recipe and heart sutra. She looked at the table full of still steaming exquisite vegetarian delicacies, then at my frail yet devout face, and then at the white jade guanyin statue beside us with its compassionate expression. She opened her mouth, then opened it again. In the end, not a single word was spoken. Clutching that booklet like a hot potato, she walked away with unsteady steps and a dazed expression. Her retreating figure was a chaotic mess, practically screaming, "Who am I? Where am I? I'm going back to tattle," watching her disappear through the courtyard gate. I immediately sprang up from the meditation cushion. "Hurry, hurry, hurry, Jinshu, heat up that cold vegetarian goose breast. Hua Ping, serve the rice. I'm starving." Copying recipes for 7 days. No, I mean the Heart Sutra, it's exhausted me. I picked up a piece of fragrant fried vegetarian goose breast and stuffed it into my mouth, crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, with the aroma of mushrooms overflowing. I squinted my eyes in satisfaction. The second rule of salted fish survival. As long as your mindset doesn't falter, there will always be more solutions than difficulties. KPI, watch me turn it into a food show. My Buddha's birthday blessing stunt was like a depth charge, creating huge waves in the stagnant pond of the prince's mansion and even throughout the entire circle of noblewomen in the capital. On the Empress Dowager's side, it said that after Mother Yang returned, she nearly fainted from anger upon seeing the description of the Buddha's birthday Heart Sutra, with complete vegetarian recipes, and the table full of vegetarian dishes. Yet, every word I used was wrapped in the banners of piety, sincerity, and the Buddha's compassion, and indeed, Not a single trace of meat was involved, there was no major fault to be found in terms of rules. The Empress Dowager, filled with suppressed rage, could only utter one word, absurd, and then nothing more came of it. As for Chu Mingyuan, there was an eerie silence. He neither came to reprimand me nor showed any support. It was as if my courtyard had completely become invisible. However, the atmosphere within the prince's mansion began to shift. In the past, when the servants saw me, their respect was tinged with fear and a sense of distance. Now, the way they look at me has become much more complicated. The reverence is still there. After all, I am still the princess consort. But there's more of a, well, how should I put it, a curiosity, as if looking at a fantastical creature, and a faint sense of envy, especially the people in the small kitchen, since my reputation, or rather, notoriety, for Zen in every bite spread. The manager of the small kitchen has practically treated me like a deity. The princess loves to experiment with food. The princess can make vegetarian dishes with the grandeur of imperial cuisine. Follow the princess, and you'll eat well, even if it's vegetarian. The manager, beaming with joy every day, leads a team of chefs in studying the new dishes I suggested, experimenting with endless variations. The entire small kitchen is bustling with energy, filled with creative vitality, and the aroma of food. Even the meals in my courtyard have seen a dramatic improvement in quality. Jinshu and Huaping, my two personal maids, have been completely led by me down the path of no return. Jinshu used to be the most steady and proper senior maid by the original owner's side, always emphasizing rules and decorum. Now, she helps me collect storybooks faster than anyone else and can accurately critique which scholar is written as the most scummy and which prince is the most blind. Huaping used to be timid, but now I've trained her to be incredibly thick-skinned. When she goes to the main kitchen to hurry the dishes, or order extra ones, her voice is loud and she speaks with unshakable confidence. The princess consort is ill, she needs nourishment. If that newly developed honey-glazed ham doesn't arrive soon, her chest will start hurting again. As for Liu Ruyan, Li Yuerong, and the others, perhaps because they suffered a setback last time at Chu Mingyuan's place and are wary of my heart condition that could strike at any moment, they've temporarily lowered their flags and silenced their drums, not daring to come provoke me again. My laid-back life seemed to have entered a golden age. Until that afternoon, I was lounging on the chaise longue, cracking freshly roasted caramel sunflower seeds while listening to the maid read a fantastical chapter from the dashing scholar's battle against the Black Mountain Demon, laughing heartily. Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside the courtyard gate. Then came Jinshu's hushed, urgent exclamation, "Your Highness." I almost choked on a melon seed. Chu Mingyuan, what is he doing here? Doesn't he treat me like I'm invisible? I hastily stuffed the storybook under the cushion, wiped the melon seed crumbs from the corner of my mouth, and was just about to sit up straight to feign the dignified, ailing beauty look when I heard a heavy, slightly hurried set of footsteps heading straight toward my main room, or rather, the site of the old prayer hall next to it. Oh, right. That originally cold and solemn prayer hall had been left unused ever since I cleared out the Guanyin statue and incense burners. A few days ago, I looked at that empty, spacious room and thought it was such a waste. A bold idea popped into my head, and then I sprang up from the bed in a flash, not even bothering to put on my shoes, and rushed out barefoot. Damn it, something's about to go wrong. By the time I dashed to the moon gate connecting to the small Buddhist hall, Chu Mingyuan was already standing at its entrance. He had his back to me, his posture as straight and firm as a pine tree, but the line of his shoulders seemed somewhat stiff. Before him stood the wide-open door of the Buddhist hall, which I had modified. An overwhelmingly rich and domineering aroma, a potent blend of cumin, chili powder, sizzling fat, and the smoky scent of fruitwood charcoal surged out from the doorway, flooding the entire courtyard. This smell was all too familiar. It was the king of my past life's night market barbecue stalls, charcoal-grilled whole lamb. Chu Mingyuan slowly, ever so slowly, turned around. That perpetually icy face now wore an expression of epic complexity, shock, disbelief, anger, and a hint of physiological confusion stirred by the intense aroma. His gaze, like two ice-forged daggers, fixed on my bare feet, then slowly traveled upward, landing on my flushed face, red from running and fright. Definitely not from guilt, Shanzai. He spoke each word deliberately, his voice seeming to squeeze through gritted teeth, carrying the storm of an impending downpour. You'd better explain yourself clearly to this prince. What in the world is being roasted in this prince's prayer hall? The air was deathly still. Only the occasional crackle of the charcoal fire and the tantalizing sizzle of fat dripping from the roasted whole lamb stubbornly drifted out through the wide-open doors of the Buddha hall. Sounding exceptionally clear and exceptionally brazen, my scalp tingled, and my toes curled awkwardly against the cold floor tiles. This is bad, this is bad, this is bad. A massive, cringe-inducing scene, records of a salted fish flipping over. My brain's CPU was running at full speed, trying to come up with a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering, and convincing reason for Chu Mingyuan within 0.01 seconds. Did Buddha send me a dream telling me to roast a whole lamb to reward the prince? No. That's too fake. Chu Mingyuan doesn't seem like the type to believe in that. Am I sleepwalking? Who could possibly sleepwalk and manage to bring back a lamb, then roast it so deliciously? Is this a case of fighting poison with poison to cure a heart condition? But this poison is just a bit too fragrant. Just as my mind was a tangled mess, ready to give up and resort to the ultimate move, pretending to faint, my nose keenly caught a trace of something unusual. Besides the strong, overwhelming aroma of the roasted whole lamb, it seemed, there was also a faint, barely noticeable scent of blood. It was coming from Chu Mingyuan. I instinctively glanced at the hem of his dark princely robes. The color was too deep to see clearly, but by the firelight coming from the Buddhist hall, it seemed, the color of the floor tile near his feet was slightly darker than the surrounding ones. And the sound of his footsteps when he approached just now, didn't they seem heavier and more hurried than usual? A bold guess instantly struck me. I abruptly lifted my head and looked at Chu Mingyuan's face. That face remained as cold and hard as ice, his jawline tightly clenched, but upon closer inspection, there seemed to be a layer of fine sweat on his temples, and the color of his thin lips was paler than usual, revealing a hint of barely noticeable pallor. My heart pounded wildly. Bet it all. The third rule of the salted fish: in desperate situations, shifting the conflict is the way to go. The panic on my face instantly faded, replaced by overwhelming concern and a touch of perfectly timed grievance. Your Highness. My voice was soft but carried a slight tremble, my gaze anxiously sweeping over him. You're injured. The fury that was about to burst forth in Chu Mingyuan's eyes clearly faltered at my sudden question. He probably never expected my reaction to be like this. Nonsense, he instinctively snapped sharply, but his body tightened almost imperceptibly for a moment. It was this moment. I immediately confirmed it. Without a second thought, I rushed toward him, moving as fast as a rabbit, survival instinct kicking in, and grabbed his arm hanging by his side. My hand touched something icy cold, with a sticky, wet texture. I looked down and saw my fingertips stained with a glaring, dark red blood. I cried out, my voice cracking as I looked up at him, my eyes instantly reddening, from fright and holding back tears. Your Highness, you're bleeding so much. Quick, someone, come quickly, fetch the imperial physician. That shout of mine was utterly sincere and heart-wrenching, absolutely the peak of my acting skills to date. Jinshu, Huaping, and the other servants in the courtyard who were startled by the commotion all panicked and fell into chaos. The prince is injured. Hurry, go fetch the physician. Prepare hot water, clean cloths. Chu Mingyuan was probably stunned by my sudden outpouring of genuine emotion and the instant chaos that erupted in the courtyard. He looked down at my hands tightly gripping his arm, my nails nearly digging into his clothes from nervousness, then at my red-rimmed eyes. The hostility and accusations that had filled him were largely swept away by the chaotic scene and my overflowing concern. He furrowed his brow tightly, trying to shake off my hand, but I held on with a death grip, putting on I'd rather die than let go of the wounded attitude. I am fine. His voice remained cold and stern, but his imposing aura had clearly weakened a bit. Losing so much blood and still saying you're fine, I said with a sob in my voice, half genuinely frightened, half feigned, and without another word, I dragged him toward my room. Come in quickly. Let's bandage it before the physician arrives. The matter of the prayer hall, We can talk about it later. Your injury is what matters now. I half-dragged, half-pulled him, though in truth, I couldn't really move him. He took the steps himself, into my warm, comfortable, fruit-scented happy slacker's den. As I passed by the entrance of the Buddhist hall, I quickly glanced inside. Well, damn, a small lamb, roasted to a golden crisp, sizzling with oil and emitting a lethally enticing aroma, was propped over a makeshift charcoal fire pit, tended by 2 servants whose faces were ashen and trembling like sieves. Scattered nearby were the spice jars and oil brushes I had ordered to be brought. The scene was too beautiful for me to behold. I quickly turned my head and continued with my devoted consort rescues her husband act, when I forcibly pressed Chu Mingyuan down to sit on my chaise lounge with its thick, soft cushion. His face was so dark it could drip ink. But he didn't struggle anymore, only pursed his lips tightly, watching me with a complicated expression as I flusteredly directed Jinshu to fetch the golden wound medicine, clean cotton cloth, and hot water. When the estate physician arrived panting with his medicine chest, he saw the prince sitting on the consort's notorious chaise lounge, with the consort herself wringing out a hot towel to wipe the prince's arm, which the prince dodged with a dark expression, while a strange aroma of roasted meat lingered in the air. The expression on the physician's face was even more dramatic than when he first saw my zen of eating. Chu Mingyuan's injury was on the outer side of his left arm, a not too deep but rather long cut from a blade. It bled quite a bit and looked quite alarming. The physician carefully cleaned, applied medicine, and bandaged it. Throughout the entire process, Chu Mingyuan didn't make a sound, not even furrowing his brow, as if the arm didn't belong to him. I, on the other hand, played the part of a virtuous wife, fake, handing over supplies and offering solicitous care. Pretend, my lord. Does it hurt, my lord? How could you be so careless, my lord? Would you like some water? Are you hungry? This humble wife will have the kitchen. Shut up. Chu Mingyuan could bear it no longer and coldly cut me off. I immediately shut my mouth and stood to the side, feeling wronged, twisting my fingers together. From time to time, I stole a glance at him, then quickly lowered my head, putting on the appearance of a timid little wife who was so worried but so afraid of you. The physician finished bandaging the wound, gave a few instructions like keep the wound dry and change the dressing on time, and then withdrew. Only the 2 of us remained in the room. The air froze once again. The aroma of the roasted whole lamb stubbornly seeped in through the cracks of the window. Chu Mingyuan's gaze finally, slowly and with immense pressure, fell upon me. Now, his voice was low, betraying no emotion. Care to explain the incident at the Buddhist hall? It's here, the ultimate judgment. I took a deep breath, raised my head, and put on a face of desperate flattery. Your Highness. I dropped to my knees at his feet. The carpet was thick, so it didn't hurt. Moving so quickly he didn't even have time to react. I grabbed hold of his calf. I didn't dare go for the thigh. Your Highness, please see reason. I wailed with genuine emotion. I did it all for you. Chu Mingyuan's body visibly stiffened, and he tried to pull his leg away, but I held on tightly. I know you're going out today to, handle official business. It must be exhausting and dangerous. I wailed while secretly observing his expression. You know about my heart condition. I can't go to the prayer hall to chant scriptures, but my heart, it aches so much, thinking of you, my lord, toiling outside while I'm stuck in the mansion unable to pray for your safety. I can't eat or sleep. I secretly pinched my own thigh, and it hurt so much that my eyes welled up with tears. And then last night, this humble one had a dream. I dreamed of a golden, shining Buddha. The Buddha said, I lowered my voice, adding an air of mystery. The Buddha said that sincerity matters more than form. Your Highness is protected by the true dragon, but you are entangled with ominous and baleful energies. You must use the most young and fierce worldly smoke and fire, supplemented with secret spices from the western regions, and offer them devoutly. Only then can you drive away evil and avoid misfortune, ensuring that your Highness turns calamity into blessing and danger into safety. I lifted my head, looking at him with tear-filled eyes. You see, didn't you encounter danger today, but fortunately only injured your arm? The Buddha has shown his divine power, your Highness. It must be this humble one's smoke and fire evil dispelling method that worked. This humble one, This humble one's sincere efforts can be witnessed by heaven and earth. I pointed in the direction of the Buddhist prayer room outside the window. That little lamb was specially sought out by this humble one. It was roasted with the fiercest fruitwood charcoal, the purest spices from the western regions, and the most devout heart fire as an offering to the Buddha. Praying for your Highness's safety. Smell this aroma. Doesn't it overflow with, the masculine energy that dispels evil? Chu Mingyuan. He looked down at me. I hugged his calf, lifted my face, and tried my best to widen my eyes, attempting to make myself look utterly sincere, utterly devout, and utterly foolish. Time passed by minute by second. The sizzling sound of the whole roasted lamb in the Buddhist hall became the only background noise at this moment. Chu Mingyuan's lips seemed to twitch ever so slightly, with extreme restraint, just once, and then again, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The rich, savory aroma of grilled meat, mixed with cumin and chili, filled his lungs deeply. Then, I heard an extremely faint, almost imperceptible sound, barely concealed by a sigh, gurgle. It came from his stomach. The air froze once again. My movement of hugging his calf froze. Chu Mingyuan's body also froze. He suddenly opened his eyes. A rare flash of emotion called embarrassment flickering in his gaze, so fleeting it was almost impossible to catch, before it was quickly replaced by an even deeper chill. But that momentary slip was precisely captured by me, a seasoned office drone and slacker. Opportunity. I immediately released his leg, nimbly got up from the ground, and instantly switched to an I understand considerate smile on my face. Your Highness, you must be hungry. Handling official duties is mentally exhausting, and you're injured, having lost so much blood you need proper nourishment. I spoke rapidly, giving Chu Mingyuan no chance to react or refuse. Wait right there, that lamb, that evil warding sacred offering is just ready. I'll go cut the most tender and flavorful piece for you. Jin Shu, Hua Ping, quickly, prepare the bowls and chopsticks for His Highness, and heat up some fine wine. I swept out of the room like a gust of wind, heading straight for the source of the aroma, my crime scene, the ancestral hall, leaving Chu Mingyuan alone, sitting on the chaise lounge covered with soft cushions. He looked at his calf that had just been held, then at the lazy, comfortable, and decadent atmosphere of the room filled with the scent of fruits and snacks, and the increasingly rich, domineering aroma of roasted meat from outside the window, carrying the warmth of human life. He raised his uninjured hand and pressed it against his throbbing temple. Finally, he let out a deep, resigned sigh, when the golden, glistening, crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, cumin and chili powder-covered grilled lamb ribs were served on an exquisite white porcelain plate and placed in front of Chu Mingyuan. When that wave of heat, mingled with the scent of charcoal fire and rich spices, rushed over us, Chu Mingyuan's fingers, holding the silver chopsticks, twitched almost imperceptibly. He lifted his gaze and glanced at me. That look in his eyes was deep and complex, containing too many things: scrutiny, inquiry, a trace of lingering annoyance, and the most primal appetite stirred by that intoxicating aroma. I didn't say anything, just eagerly pushed the plate closer to him again, my eyes sparkling with anticipation that practically shouted, "Please, try it." He remained silent for a moment. Finally, as if making a compromise, or perhaps completely defeated by the aroma, he picked up his chopsticks and lifted a piece of grilled lamb rib, charred to perfection with just the right balance of lean and fat. His movements remained elegant, carrying an innate nobility etched into his very bones. Then, under the breathless gaze of everyone in the room, including Jin Shu Hua Ping, who was secretly watching from outside the door, he placed that piece of meat into his mouth, chewed, 1, 2, he stopped chewing. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. My heart leaped into my throat. Not tasty, overcooked, too much spice, not up to the noble prince's refined taste. Just as I was imagining 100 different scenarios of being dragged out and beaten with a plank, Chu Mingyuan's Adam's apple bobbed. Then, he picked up his chopsticks again. This time, his movements were much quicker. He precisely targeted another rib that looked even more plump and juicy. He said nothing. But that silent and focused way of eating, those slightly narrowed eyes that seemed delighted by the delicious food, were more convincing than any words. Done. my heart was filled with wild joy. But I tried hard to maintain the dignified smile of a virtuous princess consort on my face, though the corners of my mouth were nearly stretched to my ears. Your Highness, slow down, there's more. Jin Shu, quickly pour wine for His Highness. Hua Ping, cut off the crispy outer skin of that roasted lamb leg for His Highness. That's the most fragrant part. That night, the atmosphere in Jing Manor completely broke from its usual decorum. The solemn Buddhist hall had become a temporary barbecue stall. The esteemed prince, seated on the princess's improper chaise lounge, washed down plate after plate of roasted lamb with warm pear blossom wine. He ate with elegance, not crudely, but at a brisk pace. The pile of lamb bones before him growing into a small mountain, I played the part of the most attentive waiter, serving him by his side, handing him napkins, pouring wine, and slicing meat, occasionally. I would muster up the courage to sneak a piece for myself. So delicious. The head cook in the small kitchen has really improved their skills. With the wine finished and the meal satisfied, Chu Mingyuan took the warm towel handed to him by Jinshu and leisurely wiped his hands and the corners of his mouth. He had no expression on his face, but the oppressive low pressure around him had mostly been dispelled by the food and alcohol, leaving only a post-meal laziness and a barely noticeable satisfaction. He put down the towel, his gaze falling on me once more. This time, there was much less ice in it. Shanzai, he spoke, his voice low, carrying a hint of hoarseness from the alcohol. Your servant is here. I immediately straightened up and responded with fawning eagerness. Your fireworks evil-warding method, he paused, as if carefully choosing his words, consumes too many sheep. Sincerity is what matters. Sincerity is what matters. For your Highness's safety, any number of sheep is worth it. I quickly expressed my loyalty. Chu Mingyuan looked at me with profound eyes, and after a long moment, let out an ambiguous hum. He stood up, his tall figure casting a shadow under the candlelight. The prayer hall will be restored to its original state tomorrow. He dropped this sentence with a flat tone, yet it left no room for doubt. My heart sank, and I was about to struggle a bit more. Actually, this is quite nice. Maybe even the Buddha enjoys barbecue. Then I heard him continue, as for the place where you pray, his gaze swept over my extremely comfortable chaise lounge and the low table piled with snacks. Just set up an incense table in your room, facing the direction of the storeroom. A simple gesture will do. Ecstasy instantly overwhelmed me. Does this mean he's tacitly allowing me to perform lying down style prayers in my own room? No more kneeling in that freezing cold prayer hall. Thank you for your grace, your Highness. Your Highness is most wise. My voice was loud and clear, my joy evident on my face. Chu Mingyuan seemed momentarily dazzled by my overly radiant smile, somewhat uncomfortably averting his gaze as he stepped outside. Reaching the doorway, his footsteps paused, but he did not turn back. That lamb, his voice was faint, was roasted, passably. With that, he lingered no longer, his figure vanishing into the night. I stood there, replaying the words not bad in my mind, along with the slight upward twitch of his lips that had quickly been suppressed as he left. Hey, there's a chance. Salted fish survival rule number 4. No conflict can't be resolved with a barbecue. If there is, then add a hot pot on top of it. The whole roasted lamb incident became a subtle turning point in the relationship between me and Chu Mingyuan. The Buddhist hall was restored to its original state. But I gained the permanent right to make a symbolic gesture of prayer in the salty fish happy room. Liu Ruyan and the others probably also heard the news that the prince had feasted heartily at my place. Although they were green with envy, they completely quieted down. Even the strict matron never came again. My life was so comfortable it was practically bubbling. Until that afternoon, I was directing Jinshu and Hua Ping to set up a bronze pot in the courtyard. Preparing to try my new invention, a nourishing mushroom chicken soup base for hot pot, ready to cook anything. Just as the broth began to boil, the rich aroma of mushrooms blended with the savory scent of chicken soup wafted through the air. The courtyard gate was slammed open with a loud bang. Liu Ruyan stormed in with Li Yuerong and Zhong Wanqing in tow, followed by several stout, burly matrons. What a refined pastime you have, sister princess consort. Liu Ruyan's voice was shrill, brimming with barely suppressed excitement and malice. completely devoid of her usual frail demeanor. His Highness has just left the capital on imperial orders, and here you are, throwing a grand feast in the courtyard with a whole roasted lamb and this whatever it is pot. Do you have even the slightest regard for rules and propriety? Do you hold any reverence for His Highness and the imperial family? Li Yuerong's voice was even louder. Exactly. The Empress Dowager and the Empress value rules above all. As the princess consort, instead of setting a good example, you're leading the way in extravagance and pleasure-seeking, tarnishing the reputation of the princely estate. We sisters simply cannot stand by and watch. Zhong Wanqing chimed in from the side, her eyes darting around. Princess consort, your last time in the Buddhist hall, praying, was already shocking enough. If this gets out to the palace again, I'm afraid even His Highness won't be able to protect you. We sisters are only saying this for your own good, urging you to show some restraint. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. With Chu Mingyuan not at home, these demons and monsters just couldn't hold back and decided to gang up to challenge this dungeon of mine, and they even put such a big label on me. I set down the freshly scalded bamboo fungus in my hand and unhurriedly wiped my mouth. Oh, for my own good, I laughed, stood up, and walked over to them. Consort Liu, you say I'm throwing a lavish banquet. Where is the banquet? Where are the feast? With just this one pot, a few plates of food, and me eating alone, does that count as a lavish banquet? Then what about the frequent use of your private kitchen in your courtyard? Wouldn't that be considered overstepping? Liu Ruyan was left speechless. I turned to Li Yuerong. Consort Li, you accuse me of indulging in luxury and pleasure. The chicken I'm eating was raised on the estate, the mushrooms were picked from the back hill, and even this soup base is made from chicken broth I simmered myself. Not a single copper coin was spent from the mansion's public funds, compared to that set of red agate hair ornaments worth a fortune in your room. How can what I'm doing be considered extravagant? Li Yuerong's face flushed red. You're twisting words and logic. I then turned my gaze to Zhong Wanqing, my eyes growing colder. Aunt Zhong, are you using the Empress Dowager to pressure me? I am the legitimate consort of Prince Jing, personally bestowed by the Empress Dowager. My name is recorded in the imperial genealogy, as a mere concubine. Who gave you the audacity to point fingers and comment on palace affairs in front of me? Do you want me to teach you the proper distinctions between superior and inferior? Zhong Wanqing, startled by my piercing gaze, took half a step back in fear, her face turning pale. You, Shenzai, don't think that being sharp-tongued can turn black into white. Liu Ruyan, seeing the situation turning unfavorable, shrilled, haven't you done enough absurd things in this courtyard? Burning books, feigning illness, turning the Buddhist hall into a kitchen, and now you're making these disgraceful things. Every single one violates women's virtues. Today, we sisters are going to properly discipline you on behalf of His Highness and the Empress Dowager. She waved her hand and commanded, guards, smash the consort's pot and all these messy things, then escort the consort to the prayer hall so she can reflect on her mistakes. The stout, burly matrons responded and stepped forward with menacing looks. Jinshu and Hua Ping immediately shielded me, shouting sternly, how dare you? Who dares lay a hand on the consort? The atmosphere in the courtyard instantly became tense and hostile. I stared coldly at Liu Ruyan's face, twisted with jealousy and hatred. If the tiger doesn't show its might, do you really think I'm a sick cat? I took a deep breath and, before the maids could rush forward, suddenly grabbed the pot of boiling chicken soup from the nearby low table, steaming and bubbling. Everyone, stay where you are, I shouted sharply. Though my voice wasn't loud, it carried a desperate, fierce determination. I lifted the pot of scalding chicken soup, aiming its spout directly at the matron leading the charge. Whoever dares take another step forward, this princess consort will let her taste what this unpresentable chicken soup really feels like. Steam rose in thick clouds, and oily droplets of the soup bubbled at the pot's mouth. The matron shrieked in terror, skidding to an abrupt halt and nearly stumbling. The other matrons were also intimidated by my stance, staring fearfully at the pot in my hands, too afraid to move another inch. Liu Ruyan and the others were also startled. Shenzai, have you gone mad? What do you think you're doing? Li Yuerong screamed in shock. What am I doing? I sneered, my gaze sharp as a blade, sweeping over each of them one by one. I, the princess consort, am in my own courtyard, eating my own food. How does that concern any of you? Every one of you pretends to be meek and timid when the prince is around, but the moment he steps out, you dare to come barging in with your people, trying to smash my pot and drag me off to the Buddhist hall. I took a step forward, the scalding pot moving closer along with me. Liu Ruyan, you're just a concubine. Who gave you the authority to discipline me, on behalf of the prince, or the Empress Dowager? Are you even worthy, Li Yuerong? Your father is merely a fourth-rank military officer. Who gave you the audacity to run wild in the prince's mansion, relying on that set of red agate hair accessories? And you, Zhong Wanqing, a concubine who isn't even recorded in the imperial genealogy, how dare you bark in front of me, the legitimate princess consort? With every word I spoke, I took a step closer. Liu Ruyan and the other two were forced to retreat step by step under my pressure, their faces drained of color, a mix of shock, anger, and fear. Today, if you dare to harm even a single blade of grass or lay a finger on me, the princess consort, I halted my steps, my voice icy cold. I will dare to splash this pot of boiling soup onto your proud faces. Let's see if your skin is thicker or this soup is hotter. You can go ahead and complain to the Empress Dowager, complain to the Empress. I, the princess consort, would like to see which crime carries more weight, yours of insubordination, gathering a crowd to cause trouble, and attempting to harm the princess consort, or mine of simply enjoying a hot pot in my own courtyard. Even if it costs me my position as princess consort, I will drag you all down with me. Let's see who loses more. I held the soup pot high, my eyes fierce, pretending, my aura fully unleashed, forced. The entire courtyard fell into dead silence. Only the bubbling sound of the soup base boiling in the copper pot and my slightly rapid breathing from excitement, and the strain of holding the pot, could be heard. Liu Ruyan stared fixedly at the pot in my hand, her face turning from red to pale, then from pale to ashen, her chest heaving violently. She clearly didn't expect that I, this sickly princess consort, could go this crazy. Are you really willing to give up your position as princess consort just for a bite to eat? You, she stammered, pointing a trembling finger at me, unable to form a complete sentence. Me what? I sneered, still not leaving, waiting for some soup. I made a move as if to splash it forward. Liu Ruyan let out a short, sharp scream, instinctively covering her face and stepping back repeatedly. Madwoman, you're a madwoman. Li Yuerong was also frightened out of her wits, pulling Liu Ruyan and Zhong Wanqing along. Sisters, let's go. Don't stoop to this madwoman's level. The three of them, like defeated roosters, along with those terrified old women, hastily and disheveledly retreated from my courtyard. Not even daring to leave behind a single harsh word, the courtyard gate was slammed shut with a heavy thud. My arm, holding the soup pot, went weak, nearly losing its grip. Your Highness, Jinshu and Huaping rushed over immediately, one taking the soup pot from my hands, scalding herself and grimacing in pain, the other steadying me. I leaned against Huaping, my legs feeling weak, and my back drenched in cold sweat. Damn, that scared me to death. Your Highness, you, just now. Jinshu looked at me with a complicated expression, lingering fear, concern, and a hint of admiration. I waved my hand, still shaken. Quick, check my pot. Is the soup spilled? Can the bamboo fungus still be eaten? Jinshu, Huaping. A storm ended with my shrew-like victory. The price was that Liu Ruyan and the others indeed went to the palace to lodge a complaint. They accused me of extravagance and wastefulness, disrespecting the Buddha hall, improper speech and conduct, and intimidating sisters. An imperial decree soon arrived from the palace. It wasn't an edict from the Empress Dowager, but an oral decree from the Empress. I was reprimanded for improper conduct and failure to exercise restraint, and punished with 1 month of confinement in my own courtyard to reflect on my mistakes, along with copying their admonitions for women and models for women 100 times each. Confinement, reflect on your mistakes, copybooks. Looking at the stern face of the chief eunuch who had come to deliver the imperial edict, I almost laughed out loud. House arrest is wonderful. It's exactly what I wanted. No need to get up early to pay respects. No need to deal with all those demons and monsters. It's practically my dream vacation. Copying books. Copy away, let Jinshu and Huaping find more people to help copy. Anyway, the Empress didn't say I have to do it all by myself. After seeing off the chief eunuch, I turned around and hugged Jinshu and Huaping. Sisters, our happy times have begun. The days of confinement became the peak of my slacker life. Once the courtyard gate was closed, it completely became my independent kingdom. Admonitions for women and rules for women. Jinshu found a few maids with neat handwriting, and through assembler line work, they finished copying them in just 3 days. With the handwriting imitated to perfection, the rest of the time was all for enjoyment. Hot pot became a daily routine. Today, mushroom broth with fresh bamboo shoots. Tomorrow, tomato hot pot with fatty beef, freshly slaughtered from the estate. The day after, spicy hot pot with tripe. I also came up with iced plum soup to pair with hot pot, refreshing and palate cleansing. Next to the swing set, a grape arbor was built, with a lounge chair and a small table placed beneath it. In the afternoon, lying in the shade of the grape arbor, enjoying chilled fruit salad, made with saltpeter ice, and listening to the maid read the newly acquired The Scheming Prime Minister's Runaway Sweetheart, pure bliss. I even had a small hot spring pool built in the courtyard, channeling in hot spring water, under the pretext of recuperating from illness, and would often soak in it while applying homemade cucumber face masks. Jinshu and Huaping went from being constantly on edge at first, to becoming numb later on, and finally, they were completely assimilated. Huaping even learned to cook my favorite tribute vegetable meatballs in the hot pot, timing it perfectly so they were crispy, refreshing, and delightfully chewy. Jinshu, on the other hand, became the manager of the Salty Fish Happy Workshop, responsible for collecting storybooks, managing the snack inventory, and arranging for the young maids to take turns reading aloud, all in an orderly and systematic manner. The day before the ban was lifted, at dusk, I sat with Jinshu, Huaping and a few trusted maids around the improved version of a bronze hot pot. The pot held a milky white fish head and tofu broth, bubbling and rolling, its fresh aroma wafting everywhere. Beside it were arranged fish slices as thin as cicada wings, hand-beaten shrimp paste, crisp and tender bamboo shoot tips, and fresh, dewy green vegetables. The lingering glow of the setting sun cast a warm golden hue over the courtyard. We laughed and chatted, dipping vegetables into the hot pot while discussing the absurd plots from storybooks, our laughter carrying far into the distance. Your Highness, this house arrest of yours seems more comfortable than a vacation, Jinshu said, shaking her head with a smile as she fished out a slice of fish for me. Of course. I ate the tender fish in one bite, squinting contentedly. Life is short, so enjoy it while you can. You're lucky to be following me, aren't you? Huaping nodded vigorously. Yes, before, when I followed, I've never felt so relaxed before. That's more like it. I raised my glass of sour plum drink. Come on, a toast to our happy quarantine life. Cheers. The young girls also raised their glasses with giggles and laughter. Just then, from the top of the courtyard wall came a soft, muffled sound. It sounded like someone had stepped on and dislodged a roof tile. We were startled, all looking up in unison. On the high courtyard wall, a familiar, dark-clad figure was, somewhat clumsily attempting to climb over. The golden light of the setting sun outlined his tall, straight silhouette, also illuminating his usually stern face, which now carried a hint of awkwardness and helplessness. It was Chu Mingyuan. He returned, and obviously, he didn't use the front door. He was hanging on my wall, in a posture that completely contradicted his noble and aloof persona. The air froze once again. The fish soup in the pot was still bubbling merrily. Our hands holding the cups froze mid-air. Chu Mingyuan also froze on the wall, probably never expecting to stumble upon my house arrest revelry in such a manner. Our eyes met. He stared at me, and I stared at his long legs still dangling outside the wall. The first thought that crossed my mind was, should this wall be built a little higher? The second thought was, in his hand, it seems he's holding an oil paper package. Smells like the marinated lamb from Juxiang's High. Chu Mingyuan was probably made even more uncomfortable by the dumbfounded stares of our entire courtyard. He took a deep breath, exerted force with his arms, and with a relatively agile, though still somewhat awkward, movement, flipped over, and jumped down. As he landed, his black robe fluttered, but his posture remained upright. The oil paper package in his hand swayed with his movements, the rich aroma of braised meat wafting out more distinctly, mingling with the scent of fish soup from my pot to form a strange yet harmonious sense of earthly life. He stood still, brushing off non-existent dust from his robes in an attempt to regain his princely dignity. However, faced with my still-dazed expression full of "what on earth are you up to?" the forced composure on his face ultimately couldn't hold. The suspicious blush swiftly flashed across the tips of his ears. He cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze, his eyes fixed on the bubbling copper pot. Ahem. His voice was a bit hoarse, carrying the weariness of a long journey, and a barely noticeable discomfort. This king passed by Juxiang's high. He lifted the oil paper package in his hand, his movements a bit stiff, thinking, "You might, not have had dinner yet." He paused, as if realizing how flimsy his excuse sounded. Then added in an even lower voice, "I heard, you've been placed under house arrest." The last rays of the setting sun fell upon him, casting a soft, warm golden glow over his cold, hard contours. He stood amidst the homely atmosphere of my courtyard, holding braised lamb for me, having just climbed over the wall. Covered in the dust of his journey, that bit of forced authority was completely dissolved by this down-to-earth gesture and his slightly reddened ears. I looked at him, then at the meat in his hand, and then at the fish soup boiling in the pot. I couldn't help it. "Phut!" I burst out laughing. Then came even louder laughter, completely uncontrollable. "Ha ha 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 ha!" Jinshu and Huaping tried to hold back at first, but seeing me doubled over with laughter and then glancing at the prince's awkward expression by the wall, they couldn't help but lower their heads, their shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter. Chu Mingyuan's face darkened completely. "Shenzai." He gritted out through clenched teeth, I'm here." I wiped away the tears of laughter and hurried over, reaching out to take the oil paper package from his hands. "You've worked hard, Your Highness. Tired from climbing the wall? Come in and sit. Perfect timing. The fish head and tofu soup has just come to a boil. It's the best for dipping thinly sliced lamb. As for this spiced lamb of yours, shall we save it for a late-night snack?" I naturally linked my arm with his uninjured one, with practiced ease, as if having rehearsed it 1,000 times, and pulled him toward the aromatic hot pot. Chu Mingyuan's body noticeably stiffened. He tried to break free, but I held on tightly, employing the same old trick. He looked down at my hand looped through his arm, then at my beaming face, so broadly smiling that my eyes nearly disappeared, and finally, with an air of resignation, allowed himself to be half-dragged. Half-led to the table, Jinshu and Huaping had already cleverly set out an extra bowl and chopsticks, and even brought over a chair padded with a thick, soft cushion. Chu Mingyuan was forced to sit in the chair, staring at the steaming hot pot in front of him, the dazzling array of ingredients for dipping, and the fish slice I had eagerly handed over, already dipped in the secret sauce. He remained silent for a moment, then, under the watchful eyes of everyone in the courtyard, trying hard not to laugh, he picked up his chopsticks, lifted the fish slice, and put it into his mouth. The sun had completely sunk below the horizon. Lanterns were hung in the courtyard, their warm yellow glow enveloping the small yard. The broth in the copper pot began to boil again, the rising steam blurring Chu Mingyuan's overly stern profile. He ate quietly, his movements still elegant, but not slow. I placed a thin slice of mutton roll into his bowl. "Your Highness, try this wrapped in the freshness of the fish broth and dipped in a bit of sesame paste. It's absolutely divine." He glanced up at me, said nothing, but followed my suggestion, picking up the mutton, dipping it in the sauce, and bringing it to his mouth. I clearly saw his chewing pause for a moment, then his brows almost imperceptibly relaxed. "This is promising." I immediately transformed into the most professional hot pot ingredient handler, continuously feeding him tripe, pork throat, shrimp paste, bamboo shoot tips. Chu Mingyuan accepted everything without refusal, taking it all in. The atmosphere was strangely harmonious, until he put down his chopsticks and took the hot towel handed to him by Jinshu to wipe his hands. "Confined to reflect on your mistakes," he began, his voice calm and steady, betraying no emotion. "Yet you seem to be living quite comfortably. Here it comes, settling scores after the autumn harvest." I immediately straightened up, putting on a deeply remorseful expression. Your Highness, please see clearly, I have been wronged, every day. I have been deeply reflecting and copying their admonitions for women and rules for women until my wrist is swollen. Look, I extended my fair and tender, thanks to the hot springs, wrist. Chu Mingyuan glanced at it, his eyes clearly saying, "Do I look like a fool to you?" But I changed my tone, my eyes turning melancholy. "But this heart condition, the imperial physician said that pent-up sorrow is the most fatal. I was thinking, if I were to become depressed and fall gravely ill during this confinement, wouldn't that be a waste of the Empress's well-intentioned effort to have me
something from me?" I tried my best to put on a serious face. Chu Mingyuan didn't answer, just leaned against the stone stool, slightly tilting his head back to gaze at the clusters of grapes hanging from the arbor, beginning to turn purple. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the leaves, casting dappled shadows across his stern profile. He seemed a little different. He seemed less tense and sharp than usual, a bit more tired. Or perhaps it was the relaxation that comes after letting down one's guard. "I just got back from court," he suddenly spoke, his voice faint. "We argued all morning. There's flooding in Jiangnan, and the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Revenue are shifting blame, arguing over who should pay and how much should be allocated. It gave me a headache." I froze for a moment. He rarely spoke to me about court matters. Was this sharing his troubles? I weighed my words carefully and cautiously asked, "So, did they finally reach a conclusion?" Chu Mingyuan curled his lips into a faint, cold smile. The outcome is that I had to dig into my own pockets and fill the 100,000 tael deficit myself, just to shut them up. Me, 100,000 taels. In silver, that's enough roasted whole lamb to circle the capital 3 times. "Your Highness is truly righteous." I forced out the praise, but my heart was bleeding. My share of the profits, after all. I also have a hand in managing the prince's estate's businesses. Even if I'm slacking off now, Chu Mingyuan seemed to see through my thoughts, glancing at me. "Don't worry, I'm using my own private treasury, not your roast lamb money." Your Highness must be joking, a bit awkward. But more than that, relieved. Thank goodness. The atmosphere fell silent again. Only the rustling of the wind through the grape leaves remained. After a long while, sometimes. Chu Mingyuan's voice sounded again, carrying a weariness that was almost a sigh. "It all feels quite meaningless." He turned his head and looked at me. That gaze was no longer the condescending scrutiny from before, but rather an equal exchange, tinged with a bit of confusion, fighting and scheming, calculating and plotting. Sitting on that golden throne, watching the people below perform one act after another, he paused. His eyes sweeping over the low table cluttered with my snacks and storybooks, and my wrinkled casual home clothes, not even as real as a bowl of hot soup in your courtyard. I stared at him blankly. Is this the Prince of Jing making a declaration of being a salted fish? I tentatively pointed to the small purple clay pot warming on the nearby stove, which was used by the small kitchen to simmer soup. "Your Highness, would you like some freshly simmered yam and pork rib soup? With a bit of goji berries added, clears the mind and brightens the eyes." Chu Mingyuan looked at me without saying a word. Just when I thought he was going to disdain it again, he nodded. I quickly stood up, ladled a small bowl of soup, skimmed off the surface oil, and handed it to him. He took it but didn't drink right away, just held the warm bowl in his hands. His slender fingers were reflected in the white porcelain bowl. "Shenzai." He suddenly called my name. I looked up at him. "This lazy life of yours." He looked at the clear soup in the bowl, his voice low. "What's so good about it?" I didn't expect him to ask that. After thinking for a moment, I sat back in the lounge chair, ladled myself a small bowl of soup, and held it in my hands. "There's nothing particularly great about it." I took a sip of the soup, feeling the warmth slide from my throat down to my stomach, and comfortably narrowed my eyes. "It's just, no need to wake up early, no need to put on airs. No need to scheme, and no need to be schemed against. Eat what I want, sleep when I want, laugh when I want, read when I want." I pointed to the storybook under the lounge chair. "Although it's cheesy, it's entertaining. No need to care about what others think or say." I looked at him and smiled, just like now, with my hair disheveled and wearing old clothes, drinking soup with you, Your Highness. No one dares to say I'm being disrespectful. It's just, for the sake of being at ease. I concluded, feeling comfortable in my heart and relaxed in my body. Everything else is just superficial. Chu Mingyuan listened in silence, holding that bowl of soup, motionless for a long time. The warm sunlight spilled over us. The shadows of grape leaves gently swayed on the stone table. In the end, he said nothing. He just lowered his head and slowly finished that bowl of warm soup. as he set down the bowl. The visible exhaustion and confusion on his face seemed to dissipate a little with the warmth of the soup. He stood up. "Let's go, Your Highness. Take care on your way." He walked to the courtyard gate, paused in his steps, and did not look back. "Tomorrow," his voice returned to its usual flat tone, but with a slight difference. "I'll take you to the estate outside the city. I've heard the hot springs are quite nice." With that, his figure disappeared beyond the door. I stood under the grape arbor, holding the empty bowl. The golden glow of the setting sun filled the small courtyard. "Tomorrow, hot spring villa." I lowered my head, looking at the last bit of clear broth left in the bowl, which reflected my own uncontrollably upturned lips. All right then. The ultimate rule of salted fish survival: it's not bad to happily lie flat, occasionally turning over to sunbathe your belly. The hot spring villa in the suburbs is indeed a wonderful place. Nestled against the mountains and beside the water, the scenery is serene and tranquil. Most importantly, the hot spring water drawn from the source is silky smooth. Soaking in it makes one feel utterly relaxed to the bone. Chu Mingyuan had booked the entire villa, ensuring peace and quiet. During the day, he would sometimes wander into the nearby mountains, though it was unclear whether he was hunting or simply clearing his mind. I, on the other hand, fully embraced the spirit of being a salted fish. I slept in until I woke up naturally. At noon, I enjoyed delicacies carefully prepared by the small kitchen in a pavilion overlooking the water, facing the scenic beauty of the lake and mountains. In the afternoon, I soaked in the hot springs, applying a face mask made from freshly picked flower petals from the estate. In the evening, I would wrap myself in a thick blanket and sit on the soft cushioned veranda, watching the sunset burn red across half the sky. When Chu Mingyuan returned, he usually brought back some game, pheasants, wild rabbits, and the like. Then, we would light a bonfire in the courtyard and roast them over the flames. His roasting skills were surprisingly good. He had a perfect grasp of the fire's intensity and knew exactly when to sprinkle the salt. I'm responsible for providing my secret spice blend, a mix of cumin and chili powder, along with chilled fruit wine. The campfire crackled, fat dripped, and the aroma filled the air. We still didn't talk much. He flipped the meat on the grill while I took small sips of the fruit wine. Sometimes he would hand me a skewer of golden brown, crispy chicken wings or rabbit legs. I would take it, blow on it, and carefully take a bite, scorching my mouth and making me grimace. Yet I'd squint with satisfaction. "Delicious," I'd mumble in praise. He'd respond, continuing to turn the skewers in his hand. The flickering firelight cast a glow on his stern profile, softening its edges somewhat. The evening before we left the estate, we sat once again beneath the corridor. The sunset clouds at the horizon blazed like fire, burning with fierce intensity. I wrapped myself in a blanket, holding a cup of warm milk, watching the brilliant clouds gradually being swallowed by the dusk. Chu Mingyuan sat on a low stool beside me, also holding a cup of wine, silently gazing into the distance. "We're returning to the manor tomorrow," I said softly, a hint of reluctance in my voice at the thought of leaving this rare moment of tranquility. He responded. A moment of silence passed. After we return, he suddenly spoke, his voice unusually deep in the twilight. "That small courtyard next to my study, it's just sitting empty anyway." He paused, as if carefully choosing his words. "Next to the lotus pond, it's cool in the summer. The space is a bit larger than yours." He turned his head and looked at me, the firelight flickering in his deep eyes. "I'll have someone tidy it up later. You can arrange it however you like." I was stunned. The small courtyard next to the study, that was almost the best and quietest spot in the entire estate, second only to the main courtyard, next to the lotus pond, cool in the summer. What does he want? Giving me a bigger happy nest for salted fish? My heart inexplicably beat a few beats faster. "Your Highness," I opened my mouth, momentarily at a loss for words, but Chu Mingyuan withdrew his gaze, turning it back toward the last sliver of sunset sinking behind the mountains. He raised his wine cup and drained it in one gulp. Then, he stood up. The tall figure stood out distinctly in the deepening dusk. "Shanzai," he had his back to me, his voice not loud, but it came through clearly. "That dead-end path of yours." He paused. "I don't think it looks too bad, Your Highness." The evening breeze swept through, carrying the fresh scent of the mountains and wilderness. The embers of the campfire radiated their last traces of warmth. Holding that cup of warm milk, I watched his tall, straight figure against the twilight, the corner of the mouth slowly, silently curved upward. The joy of being this lazy, carefree princess is truly beyond your imagination.